The sound of waves crashing against the shore usually brought me peace, but today they echoed the pounding in my head. I stood in the living room of my beach house, staring at my phone in disbelief. The Airbnb listing for my property had over 50 reviews, dating back 3 months, exactly when my brother Mark had asked to use it for his honeymoon. Gorgeous oceanfront property, perfect for a romantic getaway. One review read, "Host Mark was incredibly accommodating," said another. My hands trembled as I scrolled through photo after photo of my private sanctuary being paraded online like a hotel. I'm Sarah Mitchell, 34, and until this moment, I thought I was just being a supportive sister by letting my younger brother use my beach house for his honeymoon. The property, a modern 3-bedroom home overlooking the Pacific in Malibu, was my pride and joy. I'd worked 80-hour weeks for years as a corporate lawyer to afford it, sacrificing weekends, relationships, and sleep to make my dream come true. When Mark had called me 3 months ago, his voice thick with emotion, I couldn't say no. "Sarah, please," he begged. "Amanda and I can't afford a honeymoon anywhere nice. Just 2 weeks in your beach house would mean the world to us. You're never there anyway with your crazy work schedule." I agreed, of course. That's what family does, right? I even stocked the fridge for them and had the place professionally cleaned. Now I knew why Mark had seemed so eager to get the spare keys from me, why he asked so many questions about my work schedule, why he'd shown so much interest in the security system. My phone buzzed with another notification. A new review had posted. "Great weekend getaway. Mark was an excellent host, very responsive. Can't wait to book again." My stomach churned. This wasn't just a one-time thing. My brother had turned my private home into a business venture without my knowledge or consent. I clicked through more photos on the listing. There were my grandmother's antique vases on display, the custom furniture I carefully selected, even my private master bedroom, being advertised as a luxurious ocean view suite. The rate? $750 per night. A quick calculation made me dizzy. He must have made over $50,000 by now. My hands shaking, I dialed Mark's number. Straight to voicemail. Of course, he was probably too busy playing hotel manager with my property. I sent him a text instead. "We need to talk. Now, about the Airbnb business you're running out of my house." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, "It's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. Not what I think. The evidence was right there on my screen, complete with his smiling face in the host profile picture. Another message came through. "You're never there anyway. I'm just putting it to good use. Making it work for the family." Family. He always played that card when he wanted something. Like when he borrowed my car in college and totaled it. Or when he needed money to start his failed restaurant venture. Family had always been his get-out-of-jail-free card, and I'd always fallen for it. Not this time. I scrolled through my contacts and called my best friend Emma, a real estate attorney. "You're not going to believe this," I started, my voice shaking with anger. "Try me," she replied. I could hear her shuffling papers, probably at her desk. "Mark's been running an Airbnb out of my beach house for the past 3 months, without my knowledge, without my permission, making money off my property." The shuffling stopped. "He did what?" I explained everything, the honeymoon request, the keys, the listing I just discovered. Emma listened silently, and I could practically hear her legal brain working. "Sarah," she said finally, "this is serious. He's not just violating your trust, he's breaking several laws. Short-term rentals in that area require permits, licenses, insurance. Not to mention the tax implications. Has he been reporting this income?" I hadn't even thought about that. "I have no idea. Probably not." "You need to shut this down immediately," Emma advised. "Document everything, screenshot the listing, the reviews, save any communication with Mark. Then we'll talk about your legal options." Legal options, against my own brother. The thought made me sick, but what choice had he left me? Just then, another text from Mark came through. "Look, I know I should have told you, but you're always so uptight about the house. I'm just trying to help the family financially. Amanda and I need the money." Need the money. Classic Mark. Always needing something. Always taking without asking. I thought about all the times I'd helped him, paying his rent when he was between jobs, covering his share of mom's medical bills, even investing in his failed business ventures. And this was how he repaid me. I spent the next hour documenting everything. My lawyer brain took over. Screenshots of the listing, downloads of all the photos, saved reviews. Each piece of evidence made me angrier. He hadn't just violated my trust. He'd invaded my private space, exposed it to strangers, and profited from it. My phone rang. It was Amanda, Mark's wife. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't deal with her excuses. She'd probably known all along, maybe even helped manage the rentals. The voicemail notification popped up, and against my better judgment, I listened. "Sarah, please let us explain. Mark told me what happened. We never meant to hurt you. We were going to tell you once we'd saved enough for a down payment on our own place. Please don't do anything rash." A down payment. They were using my property to save for their house. The audacity was breathtaking. I needed to see the damage for myself. I grabbed my keys and headed to my car. The beach house was an hour away, and I had no idea if anyone was currently staying there. My own home, and I didn't even know if strangers were sleeping in my beds right now. The drive along the coast did nothing to calm my nerves. With every mile, new worries crept in. Had they changed the security codes, given out spare keys, modified the house for rentals? When I pulled into the private driveway, I noticed unfamiliar cars parked outside. My heart sank. Guests were currently staying there. Wonderful. I walked up to my front door feeling like an intruder. Should I knock? Use my key? What if they called the police? The absurdity of it all wasn't lost on me. Before I could decide, the door opened and a couple stepped out, beach bags in hand. They froze when they saw me. "Oh, are you Mark's sister?" the woman asked cheerfully. "He mentioned you might stop by to check on some things." "He what?" "Actually," I said, my lawyer voice kicking in. "I'm the owner of this property, and I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. My brother had no authority to rent this house to anyone." Their faces fell. "But we paid for the whole week," the man protested. "Through Airbnb, we have confirmation and everything." "I understand, and I'm truly sorry. You should contact Airbnb for a full refund. I'll provide any documentation they need." I handed them my business card. The listing was fraudulent. They looked at each other, then back at me, uncertain. "Should we leave?" I sighed. This wasn't their fault. "You can stay until tomorrow morning." "I'll need the keys then." They nodded, visibly relieved, and returned inside. I texted Mark. "At the beach house now. Met your current guests. We need to talk. In person. Today." His reply came instantly. "On my way. Please don't do anything drastic." Drastic? Like secretly renting out someone's house for months. I walked the property, noting every change. A new locks by the garage. Security cameras I hadn't installed. A welcome sign that read, "Welcome to Paradise." My blood boiled. He hadn't just rented out my house, he'd branded it. I used my key to enter through the garage. Inside, everything was neatly organized. Bins labeled extra linens, beach supplies, cleaning materials. At least he'd been professional about it, I thought bitterly. In the kitchen, I found a welcome book. Local recommendations, house rules, appliance instructions. He created an entire hospitality business out of my home. I sat at the kitchen island, surrounded by evidence of betrayal, and waited. The waves still crashed outside, but now they kept time with my fury. An hour later, I heard a car. Mark's voice drifted in, probably explaining something to the guests. Then the garage door opened. "Sarah?" His voice was tentative. Nothing like the confident host persona from the listing. "Can we talk about this?" I turned to face him, taking in his nervous expression, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Yes, Mark. Let's talk about how you turned my home into a hotel without my knowledge. Let's talk about the thousands of dollars you've made renting it out. Let's talk about the complete violation of trust." He swallowed hard. "I can explain everything. I can't wait to hear it." Mark stood in my kitchen, shifting his weight from foot to foot like he used to do when we were kids. He'd been caught in a lie. Some things never change. He ran his hand through his hair, a nervous habit I recognized all too well. "Look," he started, pulling out one of the kitchen bar stools. "I know how this looks." "How this looks?" I cut him off, my voice sharp. "It looks like my brother has been running an illegal rental business out of my home for 3 months. It looks like you've been pocketing thousands of dollars while lying to my face. Please tell me how this is supposed to look." He sat down, placing his hands flat on the marble countertop. We were desperate, Sarah. Amanda lost her job right after the wedding, and my business wasn't doing well. We were drowning in debt, and this place, it was just sitting here empty most of the time. So you decided to steal from me instead of asking for help. I pulled up the Airbnb listing on my phone. $750 a night, Mark. For 3 months, that's over $50,000 you've made from my property. His eyes widened slightly at the number, and I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt, maybe, or just surprise that I'd done the math. It wasn't stealing, he protested weakly. I was maintaining the place, keeping it clean, managing everything. I've even made improvements. Improvements? I gestured around the kitchen. You mean like the security cameras you installed without my permission? The locks on my garage? The welcome signs and instruction manuals? Those make the place more professional. The reviews have been amazing, Sarah. People love it here. I've built up a really good business. It's not your business to build. I slammed my hand on the counter, making him jump. This is my home, Mark. My private space. The place I come to get away from everything. And you've turned it into a hotel. The sound of footsteps overhead reminded me that we weren't alone. The current guests were still upstairs, probably wondering about the argument they could hear below. Mark lowered his voice. I was going to tell you, once we had enough saved for a down payment on our own place. We're almost there. Just another month or two. Another month. I laughed incredulously. You thought you could just keep this going. What about the legal implications? The permits? The insurance? The taxes? He paled slightly. I was handling all that. Were you? Because according to my friend Emma, you remember Emma, the real estate attorney? What you've been doing here is completely illegal. You could be facing serious charges. Charges? His voice cracked. Sarah, come on. We're family. You wouldn't press charges against your own brother. There it was again, the family card. I've been waiting for him to play it. Family doesn't do this to each other, Mark. Family doesn't lie and steal and manipulate. You've been letting complete strangers into my home, giving them access to my personal belongings, my private spaces. Did you even think about the risks? What if something had been stolen? What if someone had been hurt? He had the decency to look ashamed. I was careful about who I approved. I always checked their reviews, their profiles, and nothing bad happened. Nothing bad happened yet. I corrected him. But what about liability? If someone had gotten injured, they could have sued me. I could have lost everything, including this house. I didn't think about that, he admitted. Of course you didn't. You never think about consequences, Mark. You just do whatever you want and expect everyone else to clean up your messes. He flinched at that, and for a moment, I saw the little brother I'd grown up protecting. The one I'd always tried to shield from the consequences of his actions. Maybe that had been part of the problem. What do you want me to do? He asked quietly. I can cancel all the upcoming bookings, take down the listing. You're going to do that anyway, I said firmly. But first, I want to know exactly how much money you've made from my property. Every penny, and I want to know where it all went. Mark pulled out his phone, hands slightly shaking as he opened the Airbnb app. I can show you everything. All the bookings, all the income. For the next hour, we went through it all. The total was even higher than I'd estimated, nearly $65,000 in just 3 months. He'd been running a highly successful business. I had to give him that. Too bad it was completely illegal. Where's the money, Mark? I asked after we'd gone through all the numbers. He shifted uncomfortably. Most of it went to paying off our wedding debt and some home furnishings for our apartment. We put about $30,000 into a savings account for the house down payment. I want it back, all of it. His head snapped up. What? Sarah, we can't. We don't have all of it anymore. And what about all the work I put in? Managing the bookings, cleaning, maintenance. Work you were never authorized to do in the first place, I reminded him. You're lucky I'm not involving the authorities. Please, he begged, we can work something out. Maybe I could pay you a percentage of the earnings, or we could become partners. This could be a real business opportunity for both of us. I stared at him, amazed by his audacity. Even now, caught red-handed, he was trying to turn this to his advantage. A business opportunity? I repeated slowly. You want to partner with me after what you've done? Think about it, he pressed, apparently mistaking my incredulity for interest. The place is already established on Airbnb. Great reviews, solid booking history. With your ownership and my management experience. Stop, I held up my hand. Just stop. This isn't a negotiation, Mark. This isn't a business opportunity. This is me telling you to end this illegal operation immediately. His face fell. What about our savings, the down payment? You have until the end of the week to transfer the money back to me. Every penny you can scrape together. After that, I'm talking to my lawyer about our options. You'd really do that to me, to Amanda? His voice took on that wounded tone I knew so well. We're finally getting our lives together, Sarah. This could ruin everything. You did this to yourself, I said, standing up. And to be honest, I'm tired of being the one who has to fix your mistakes. You're not a kid anymore, Mark. It's time you face some real consequences. He stood too, desperation clear in his eyes. What about the current guests and the upcoming bookings? The current guests can stay until tomorrow as planned. After that, you're refunding everyone else and taking down that listing immediately. Mark nodded slowly, finally seeming to understand that I wasn't going to back down. I'll need to tell Amanda. Yes, you will. And Mark? I waited until he looked at me. I want all the keys back, the garage lockbox code, the security camera access, everything. Now, as I watched him gather the keys and write down the codes, I felt a mixture of sadness and relief. Sad that it had come to this, that my own brother had betrayed my trust so completely, but relieved that I finally stood up to him, finally stopped enabling his behavior. I really am sorry, he said quietly, placing the keys on the counter. I never meant for it to get this far. I know, I replied. That's always been the problem. You never mean for things to get out of hand, but they always do. And I'm done picking up the pieces. He walked toward the door, then turned back. What about Mom's birthday next week? Should I not come? I hadn't even thought about that. About how this would affect family gatherings, holidays, our relationships with other relatives. But I couldn't let that sway me now. That's up to you, I said. But if you do come, don't expect me to pretend everything's fine. No more keeping secrets to protect you, Mark. Those days are over. After he left, I sat in my living room, listening to the waves and thinking about everything that had happened. The guests upstairs were quiet, probably trying to stay out of the drama unfolding below. I couldn't blame them. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. How did it go? I looked around at my beach house, my sanctuary that had been violated by my own brother's greed and thoughtlessness. It's handled, I wrote back. But I might need your legal help after all. Can we meet tomorrow? Her response was immediate. Of course. My office, 9 a.m. Bring all the documentation. I settled deeper into my couch, feeling drained but resolute. For the first time in our lives, Mark was going to have to face real consequences for his actions. And for the first time, I wasn't going to shield him from them. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, legal meetings, difficult conversations with family members, the process of reclaiming my space. But for now, I just sat there, watching the waves and knowing I'd finally done the right thing. The next few days passed in a blur of legal meetings and family drama. As expected, Mark told his version of events to our parents before I could explain my side. By the time I arrived at Emma's office Monday morning, my phone was already buzzing with messages from family members. Did you really threaten to have your brother arrested? My mother's text read, He made a mistake, Sarah. Don't you think you're overreacting? I ignored it, focusing instead on the stack of documents Emma had spread across her desk. Bank statements, earned records, property regulations, everything we needed to build our case. The good news, Emma said, adjusting her reading glasses, is that Mark has already taken down the listing and started processing refunds for future bookings. The bad news is that he's only transferred back about $15,000 so far. Let me guess, I sighed. That's all they have left. She nodded. According to the records he provided, most of the money went to paying off their wedding debt and furnishing their apartment. The rest was supposed to be their house down payment, but they've already spent some of that too, I finished. Typical Mark, always spending money before he actually had it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Amanda. Please, Sarah, we can explain everything. Mark is devastated. Can we meet for coffee? I showed the message to Emma. What do you think? Legally, I'd advise against any private meetings right now. But personally, She removed her glasses, looking at me with sympathy. This is family. Sometimes it's worth hearing them out. I thought about it. Amanda had always been the more responsible one in their relationship. Maybe she could help reason with Mark about the repayment. Fine, I texted back. Tomorrow morning, the cafe on 4th. Emma gathered the documents into a neat pile. Just remember, anything you say to them could affect our legal position if this goes to court. You really think it might come to that? She gave me a level look. Depends on whether they cooperate with the repayment plan we're proposing. $65,000 is a lot of money, Sarah. The next morning, I arrived at the cafe early, choosing a quiet corner table where we could talk privately. Amanda showed up right on time, looking worn and nervous. Thank you for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I know you probably hate us right now. I don't hate you, I interrupted. I'm angry, disappointed, and hurt. But I don't hate you. She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, staring down at it. We should have told you from the beginning. I wanted to, but Mark, he said you'd say no, that it would be better to prove it could work first. And you thought that was okay? Letting strangers into my home without my knowledge. No, she admitted, but we were desperate. The wedding put us in so much debt, and then I lost my job. Mark was trying to find a way out. By stealing from his sister. Amanda flinched. He doesn't see it that way. He thinks because he was maintaining the property, managing everything, that gives him the right to profit from it? I shook my head. What about the legal risks? The liability issues? I know, she said quietly. I tried to tell him we needed proper insurance permits, but he said it would defeat the purpose if we had to pay for all that. I took a sip of my coffee, studying her. How much of the money is actually left, Amanda? She bit her lip. About $20,000. We've already transferred the 15 we could access immediately. The rest, we used some of it for deposits on furniture, appliances, things we thought we'd need for our new house. The house you were planning to buy with stolen money. It wasn't, she started, then stopped herself. You're right, that's exactly what it was. I'm so sorry, Sarah. We got caught up in the plan, in finally having a way to get ahead. At my expense. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. What can we do to make this right? I pulled out the repayment plan Emma had drafted. This is what we're proposing. Monthly payments with interest until the full amount is repaid. Everything documented and legally binding. Amanda scanned the document, her face falling slightly at the numbers. It'll take us years at these payment levels. You had no problem spending the money in 3 months, I pointed out. Now you have to pay it back. She wiped her eyes. We'll sign it. And I'll make sure Mark does too. No more excuses. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from our mother. Family dinner tonight. Non-negotiable. We need to sort this out. I showed Amanda the message. She grimaced. Mark told them yesterday. Your dad is not happy. With him or with me? Both, I think, but mostly with Mark. He keeps saying he raised us better than this. At least someone in the family understood the gravity of what Mark had done. The family dinner that evening was exactly as awkward as I'd expected. Mom had made her famous lasagna, her go-to peace offering in times of family conflict. Mark and Amanda sat across from me, both looking uncomfortable. Dad occupied his usual place at the head of the table, his expression stern. Well, Mom said brightly, passing the salad, shall we discuss the elephant in the room? What's to discuss? Dad spoke up before anyone else could. Mark stole from his sister. End of story. Dad, Mark started, but Dad cut him off. No, son, you don't get to explain this away. What you did wasn't just dishonest. It was illegal. You could have gotten your sister into serious trouble. Mom reached for Dad's hand. But he's going to make it right. Aren't you, Mark? We've already started, Amanda said quickly. We're signing a repayment agreement tomorrow. Which wouldn't be necessary if you hadn't spent money that wasn't yours to begin with, Dad pointed out. The tension around the table was thick enough to cut with a knife. I pushed my lasagna around my plate, not really hungry. I just don't understand, Mom said, looking between Mark and me. Why couldn't you two work this out together from the beginning? Share the profits, make it a family business. Because it's my house, I said firmly. My private space. Not a hotel, not a business opportunity. Mine. But you're never there, Mark muttered. That doesn't make it yours to use. Dad's voice rose. Would you want someone renting out your apartment without your permission? Mark slumped in his chair. No. Then why did you think it was okay to do it to your sister? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Finally, Mark looked up at me, his eyes red. Because she always fixes everything. She always has the answers, the money, the solutions. I thought this one time, I could be the one who figured things out. His words hit me hard. All these years of helping him, protecting him, had I contributed to this, made him feel like he couldn't succeed on his own. That's not an excuse, Dad said, but his tone had softened slightly. No, it's not. I agreed. But maybe it's something we need to address. All of us. Amanda reached for Mark's hand. We're going to make this right. However long it takes. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. So what happens now? Now, I said, Mark and Amanda signed the repayment agreement. They followed through with returning every penny they can. And I looked around the table at my family. We work on being more honest with each other. About everything. Dad nodded approvingly. And the beach house? Stays private. My sanctuary, not a business. Agreed, Mark said quietly. I really am sorry, Sarah. For everything. For the first time since this all began, I believed him. It didn't erase what he'd done, didn't make it okay. But it was a start. The rest of dinner passed in relative calm, the worst of the storm seemingly behind us. As we helped Mom clear the dishes, she pulled me aside. You're doing the right thing, she whispered, making him face consequences. Your father and I. Maybe we should have done more of that when you were growing up. I hugged her, surprising us both. Better late than never, right? She squeezed me back. Just, don't give up on him completely. He's still your brother. I know, Mom. I know. 6 months after discovering my brother's beach house rental scheme, I stood on the deck watching the sunset. The property finally felt like mine again, cleansed of the revolving door of strangers who had occupied it during those chaotic 3 months. The repayment process hadn't been easy. Mark and Amanda had stuck to their agreement, making monthly payments even when it meant taking on extra work. Mark had started driving for a delivery service on weekends, while Amanda had found a new job with better pay. They weren't living comfortably, but they were following through on their commitment. My phone buzzed with a text from Mark. Still okay if we come by tomorrow to help with the maintenance. Amanda's bringing her famous chocolate chip cookies. I smiled slightly. This was our new routine. Once a month, they'd come help me with the upkeep of the property. Not because I needed it, but because it was Mark's way of trying to make amends beyond just financial repayment. Sure, I texted back. Come around 10. The sound of footsteps on the deck made me turn. Emma had come to visit for the weekend, a much-needed break from both our busy legal careers. Still hard to believe all this happened, she said, handing me a glass of wine. Remember when you first called me about the Airbnb listing? I took a sip, letting the memory wash over me. I was so angry, ready to press charges, take him to court, anything to make him pay. And now, I considered the question. Now I think maybe this needed to happen. Not the betrayal part, but the wake-up call. For all of us. Emma settled into one of the deck chairs. How so? Mark needed to learn there are consequences to his actions. I needed to stop being his safety net. Our parents needed to see the pattern they'd helped create. I paused, watching the waves. We're all different now. And we were. The past 6 months had brought changes I never expected. Mark had started seeing a therapist, working through his issues with money and self-worth. Our parents had become more conscious of their enabling behaviors. And I had learned to set boundaries without cutting ties completely. The next morning, Mark and Amanda arrived right on time. Amanda headed straight to the kitchen with her promised cookies, while Mark carried in his toolbox. The deck railing needs some work, I told him. And there's a loose board by the hot tub. He nodded, getting straight to work. No complaints, no excuses, just quiet determination to help maintain the property he had once tried to exploit. As I watched him work, I remembered something he'd said at that tense family dinner 6 months ago. She always fixes everything. It had taken this crisis for me to realize that my constant fixing hadn't always helped. You're getting good at this, I commented as he finished securing the railing. He looked up, surprised by the compliment. Yeah, well, YouTube tutorials help. And he hesitated. I've been taking some home maintenance classes at the community college. Figured it's time I learned to fix things myself. This was new information. Really? What else are you learning? He wiped his hands on his jeans, standing up. Basic electrical, plumbing, that kind of stuff. The instructor says I have a knack for it. Actually, he paused again. I'm thinking of getting certified. Maybe starting my own legitimate home maintenance business. I raised my eyebrows. Your own business? After what happened with the restaurant? This is different, he said quickly. I'm not jumping in with borrowed money this time. Learning the skills first, building experience, doing it right. From the kitchen, Amanda called out, "Tell her about the business plan." Mark actually blushed. "It's still just an idea, but would you look it over? When it's ready? You always were better at the planning part." I studied my brother's face, seeing something I hadn't noticed before. A new maturity, a willingness to learn from his mistakes rather than just expect someone else to fix them. "I'd be happy to look it over," I said, "but only as a consultant, not an investor." He laughed. "Trust me, I've learned my lesson about mixing family and finances." Inside, Amanda had set up coffee and cookies. As we sat around the kitchen island, I was struck by how different this felt from our tense conversations 6 months ago. "We've been house hunting," Amanda mentioned, dunking a cookie in her coffee. "Nothing fancy, just a small starter home. But this time we're doing it right, saving for a proper down payment, working on our credit scores." "That's great," I said, and meant it. "How much more do you need?" "About a year of saving," Mark answered. "Plus another 18 months of repayments due. But we're getting there." I nodded, thinking about something I've been considering for a while. "You know, if you keep up with the repayment plan and your maintenance help here, maybe we can discuss adjusting the interest rate, make it a bit easier for you to save." Their faces lit up, but Mark's expression quickly turned serious. "You don't have to do that. We deserve the full consequences. Consider it a reward for proving you can be responsible," I replied. "You've shown up every month, made every payment, helped maintain the property. That should count for something." Amanda reached across the island and squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Sarah, for everything. Even the hard parts." Later that afternoon, as I watched them drive away, I thought about how far we'd all come. The betrayal had hurt deeply. But from that hurt had grown something unexpected. A healthier relationship with my brother, built on honest communication and real accountability instead of enabling and resentment. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Still coming to Sunday dinner. Dad's grilling steaks." "Wouldn't miss it," I replied. Family dinners had become different too. More open, more honest. Sometimes uncomfortable, but always real. No more sweeping problems under the rug or pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. That evening, I sat on my deck again, listening to the waves and thinking about forgiveness. Not the easy kind that comes with a quick apology and a hug, but the harder kind that requires work, accountability, and change from everyone involved. The sun was setting over the ocean, painting the sky in brilliant colors. My beach house was my sanctuary again, but now it held new memories of difficult conversations that led to healing, of a brother learning to stand on his own feet, of a family learning to love each other better. My phone lit up with one last text from Mark. "Thanks for today, and for giving me a chance to make things right. Not everyone would have." I smiled, typing back, "That's what family does. The real kind, not the excuse kind." His response came quickly. "I finally know the difference." And that, I realized, was the biggest change of all.